Someone else here. Bingo. Okay, we'll record it from the phone. Not a problem. How you guys doing today?
I'm good. Just I'm in a cab in a taxi home, so I'm just listening in, and I'm gonna get on my desk and join in properly with my notes.
Okay.
But yeah, just rushing home now. It's like 7 in the evening. Yeah.
7 p.m. UK. It is.
UK, London.
It is 11 a.m. Pacific Standard. Still 7 p.m. West African time, and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So here, let's try and get a central here. I'm not certain who the other person is. Who do we have on the call? We have another person on the line. Well,
I don't know who that is. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
yes, you can.
Yeah, this is Ty. This is Ty Mir.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Excellent, doing well. We had a good conversation last week, about a week ago. So
Yes.
yes, good to have you guys back here. So first and foremost, I want to make sure that, it's sometimes it's difficult scheduling based on, all the different time zones and with my schedule as well. So, I'll try to make this as, productive for you guys as possible. We still haven't gotten the recording from the last class, which I promise we'll still get to you. And so today we are going over product sourcing and product selection. Okay. Now, this is something that we perhaps, what should I say? We've already kind of semi gone over, in the sense that some products have already been pre-selected for the purpose of kind of making this class productive for you in terms of real action items and in real world application. We've pre-selected some products that are already good for you, but we will go over a few things today to help you kind of and guide you in future product selection, in future, product sourcing, and those type of things. So first and foremost, welcome again. This is Business in Africa 101. And, as you guys know, in this class, I'm pretty much walking you through the fundamentals and the basics of how to get started in creating wealth with Africa and doing business with the continent, whether in the diaspora or on the continent. And so with that said, we will jump right into it. Okay. Jump right into it. Now, I'm going to use both my phone here and the computer. And so I'll show you guys some stuff that, as you're taking notes, I'll also make sure that on here, let's see, we're going to try to record it on here so that in the replay, you'll be able to see some of this stuff. Now, question for you guys. Have you been able to log in to the course page?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I've logged into it.
Okay, excellent. And so in the course page, one of the things that I did do this week is I made a couple of things live. So you should be able to get access into more things that we're going to talk about today. Specifically, we will be going over like I said, how to select a product selection, as well as product sourcing. So, we've sort of talked about different types of products that you can source from the continent. And as usual, the core products I talk about, hibiscus, shea butter, are some obvious ones. But with the African continent, your options are very, very, very wide. Okay, yeah, I mean, you can source quite a number of things from the African continent, depending on what part of the continent, depending on what you're looking for. You can probably find it on the continent. So your options are very wide. You can do quite a lot in different products. Now, sourcing them is a whole nother story, right? Which is part of why we'll go over it. But there is an abundance of products. And today, like I said, we'll go over that, but we'll also be going over some of the risks. I don't know if you guys have read the entire ebook as a guideline, but there are risks involved to doing business on the continent. There are, different things from costs, from electricity, data, power, logistics. These are real risk regulations. So in terms of where you're sourcing from, you could face different challenges, right? I was asked earlier today, what countries I feel are easier to do business in. So the ease of doing business. And if you look at the list in the ebook, I specifically pointed out certain countries. So some of those countries were like Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa, Tanzania. That's another good one. So these are some of the countries that it can be easier to do business. Now, I had put Rwanda as my top country, okay, in terms of ease of doing business. And then let's say Rwanda is number one, all right? Well, guess what number Nigeria would be? Any guesses?
Maybe number 7. That's me being optimistic, but I think it's probably number 25.
Very optimistic.
Yeah.
Number
I would
50,
say going very hard.
number 54. That's where I would put it. However, it is still one of my favorite places to do business, simply because I have done business there for a while. And so, you kind of get used to it. And then being born and raised there as well, those things kind of help, right? And then there is a bias. I have a personal bias to doing business there. So nonetheless, though, I really wish, and I apologize, I really wish this was on the computer here so I could share the screen. But what I will do is I'll turn the screen around, that way you guys can look at what I'm looking at. And this is straight out of the dashboard, okay? So if you're at your computer, you can log in to the dashboard and you'll see that we're on lesson 3, okay? We're on lesson 3, how to select products, okay? Now, how to select products? Well, the number one thing I always talk about when we start talking about business in Africa is research. And that is no different than what I'm going to tell you right now about selecting products. The number one thing you want to do is research. You want to research a number of things. You want to research, one, what products are readily available, right? So let's use gold, for example. Let's say you wanted to do gold, okay? That's a great product. However, is it readily available? That's going to be the next question. So you want to do research around products that are readily available, products that can be easily packaged, and then products that can be easily shipped. All right. So again, it's really about the research. It comes down to that. And that's why I think at any stage of this class, or anyone trying to tap into business in Africa, the first thing I say is research. So it's no different when you're selecting products. You really want to do some research around the products that you're interested in. You want to find out the availability of these products. You want to find out, if they can be exported or imported or shipped, easily. If you were to select gold, again, great, fantastic product. However, the ease of getting it will be a challenge. It's not going to be readily available for you. Shipping it is also going to be a challenge, or could be a challenge, depending on where you're shipping from, packaging it from, and then logistics and safety are another key part to selecting your products. You really do want to think about these as key components. Okay, so we've touched on, just in research, some key parts of your research will be its availability, will be the ability to package it, ship it, the logistics of it. Every product has different shipping requirements. Okay, so depending on where you are, you could be in the UK, and there's probably products in the UK that won't be allowed in the US, or vice versa. You might find products in the US that may not be allowed in the UK. So you want to look at shipping requirements. A good example of this would be things like lithium, right? Certain shipping companies don't allow you to ship lithium batteries. So if you're shipping a product with lithium in it, you have to take it out, right? So you want to kind of hone down on the research on these things, specifically in this way. Look at what the product is, really its availability, the shipping requirements, the packaging, the entire logistics of it, meaning what's the logistics like for a product from South Africa to the United Kingdom, or South Africa to the US? How long will it take? Is it easier getting it from South Africa or from elsewhere? You kind of want to just weigh your options based on your research and the product. So I'm going to go back to hibiscus and shea butter, because those are the two products that I've promised you guys we'd kind of use as examples. So as I was selecting products to ship into the US, I've mentioned very many times that I did years of research. Okay, trust me, it was years of research around, its consumption, its availability, et cetera, et cetera. I came to find out that hibiscus is very much available in Nigeria, where I was. And so because it's very much readily available, it was easy for me to source it, right? And then packaging it was not much of an issue because it's dry. That's another component of the product you want to select. So is this going to be a liquid product? Is this a solid form product? Is this a gas product? In what form, in what state is this product? Because that will also affect how you ship it and how you package it. Okay, so using hibiscus and shea butter as examples, these are two different products. And this is why I love using them as examples, because the way you package and ship them have different conditions. So when you're shipping hibiscus, one, it's in dried form. So it's in the dry form. It's very light. So when you think about your logistics cost and your shipping cost, it's a very light product. which could be very much to your advantage because shipping is based on weight. So you're selecting a light product. It's light, you can package it easily. Okay, now, in considering the packaging for something like hibiscus, you don't want the flowers to come crushed. You want them as full as possible. So in considering the packaging for my hibiscus, one of the things I did was find ways to package it so that perhaps it's in a box or in a way that it being affected by being crushed and other things is minimal. Now, if you don't mind or you don't care the form, then you can ship it whatever you want. But hibiscus is a dry product, and so the packaging and the shipping reflected that. Its weight is very light, and so that also helped as well. Now with shea butter, a little bit different. Shea butter is very oily, okay, and it could be quite heavy. So the way you package and ship shea butter is very different from the way you package and ship hibiscus flowers. So in shipping shea butter, for example, if you were in the live when we did the hibiscus at the warehouse, you saw that, we were just carrying it, loading it, palletizing it, wrapping it up. The shea butter was very different, right? It's very oily. Some of it was, soaked up the boxes. And so you have oily boxes, and then it's very heavy. It's actually heavier than, let's see, one box was 66 pounds. So yeah, a box of the shea butter was heavier than the bag of hibiscus flowers. Now, I will also say that the box of shea butter had 2 bricks of shea butter in it, which made it 66 pounds. And then the bag of hibiscus was 55 pounds. And you see that because of the form and condition or the state of the product, the shea butter all came in boxes. The hibiscus flowers all came in sacks. And these things are also ways of kind of maximizing your shipping cost and the space that you have. Those are also things to look into when considering, selection of a product. So that's just the research side. All right, that's one part of it. The next part of it is supply. What's the availability of supply? Is the quantity you are looking for available? If you're looking for gold, okay, if you're looking for gold, perhaps you can go to a market and find a decent amount of gold, maybe I don't know, a few pounds. But if this is something that you are planning on making a business, then consistency in your supply is extremely important. It's extremely important because if you don't have the supply of a product consistently, then you can't really meet up with the demands of your market. It wouldn't be as worthwhile your time to invest so much into bringing in a product from another continent, marketing it, maybe selling it and doing well, and then you don't have enough supply. So the quantity is extremely important. The quantity needs to be available. So as you do your research into your product, part of looking at the availability is not just, hey, they have it. You also want to know that your supply of said product is readily available for you to have in the quantity that you need. So that as you grow your business, you want to make sure that your supply can meet up with that demand. Okay, so with hibiscus, again, it's great product because I show you from the 0 level, right, to the, hundred thousands of pounds scale, right? That's what you want to know. Excuse me. That's what you want to know when looking at your supply. You want to understand that you have the quantity and that it's available. And then the other thing is how much availability. So right now I'm sharing a lot about harvesting hibiscus and it's the season for it, right? However, what if we ran out of hibiscus, this month, or the customers I'm supplying run out of hibiscus? Now, if they would run out and I didn't have more available for them, that would probably be a problem for their business. And it probably will be a problem for your business as well, if that's the case. So you want to know that the quantity is available, all right? But you also want to know kind of the I wouldn't call it the life cycle, but I would call it the frequency of the quantity available. So yeah, perhaps your supplier, as we look into this, you want to make sure that your supply can provide you with that quantity of product. And you also want to understand the consistency and the frequency as to how much they can supply you in a given period. So oftentimes you want to know how much can you supply in a month, how much can you supply in a couple months. Sometimes it's quarterly. And many, many times when I'm having discussions with buyers, it's often annually as well. They want to understand your capability. And that is something you want to look into as, you source for product. There was a conversation I had with a lady talking about shea butter and her supply of shea butter, which was from Ghana. And one of the things she mentioned that I remember was she was sourcing it from Ghana, okay, getting it supplied to her in the United States. And I think the turnaround or supply cycle was maybe a couple months, 2-3 months, something like that. And so I posed a question to her. So assuming, your product catches fire, you're selling like hotcakes, Black Friday is coming up, it's the holiday season, and you're cranking it out. You're selling product, but because you're doing so well, you got to get some more supply. And when you do need to get more supply, how quickly can you get that supply? Right? If it's going to take a couple months, well, you don't really have a couple months. You're already in November. You're trying to catch your current sales. This is how people get back ordered, and then they have to go back to their supplier and try to get some more. So, you want to try and avoid some of those things. And that's why it's important to understand the supply cycle. You want to understand the supply cycle of your products, and the geography and the distance to your supplier is also important. Hence, what I share, right, about being an African supplier, yet having strategic distribution in certain regions of the world so that it's always readily available for my buyers. Okay, hope that makes sense. And by the way, if any of this doesn't make sense, I want to get some feedback. If you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in and ask your questions. All right. So we've touched on the research aspect of things, and now we've touched on the supply aspect of things. Knowing that the quantity you need is available, knowing your cycles of supply, and another aspect of supply and research that you should know is the storage requirements for your product. So let's go back to gold, hibiscus, and shea butter. With gold, there are very little to no, storage requirements for something like gold, in the sense that, I mean, you would have to really heat up the gold to get it melted, right? So generally speaking, gold can stay stored in cold and dry climates with no issues. Now, hibiscus flowers, you want to keep hibiscus flowers in sort of room temperature, what we would call it's the right term for it. Skips my mind, but you want to have it in a dry place, okay? A dry, cool place, somewhere that's not too humid, tepid. There you go. Somewhere that's not too humid, so that it doesn't, gain moisture and then start getting some fungus, etc. So you want to make sure it's in a very dry place with little to no moisture. That way it doesn't develop fungus and fungi and insects, etc. So that's a product like hibiscus. Now,
Can I
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can I ask about the hibiscus? So you mentioned to not have it in a tepid environment, not somewhere that's too
Yes, somewhere that's too
dry, cool and dry. Yeah. Is it possible to use some sort of packaging to keep it as fresh as possible, or is that not?
That's a
Because you
great,
can store it. Yeah.
great point. So,
Yeah.
if you've definitely seen the warehouse, right?
Okay.
So one of the things I show in the packaging of how we store it in the warehouse is we have an inner liner. It's a polypropylene, inner liner that keeps it nice and dry and away
Yeah.
from. And so that's something that you do want to do, even if it's retail packaging, right? You want to make sure that there's little to no moisture that's into it to avoid humidity.
Do you use a little, those little beads? Sometimes you find them in trainers.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, we do
Yeah.
not use that in food product.
Okay, I'm just, yeah.
So we don't use that in food product. But there are specific packaging for things like that, hence what we use at the warehouse.
Got it. Okay.
So that's a great question. So yeah, finding good packaging such as that is very important. Okay. Now, shea butter, again, different type of product. Okay. Shea butter will require a cool place. If it's too hot, it's gonna melt. Right. So yeah, that's something you want to be aware of. So you want to make sure that it's nice and cool in the storage area, that you have something like shea butter. If not, it's just going to melt on you. And that's not usually the condition you want your customer to see it. Now, there you go, shea butter is a 90 to 100 degree melting point, right? So you want to keep it below that. Now, even if you're shipping it out, that's another aspect to your packaging that you want to be aware of. Now, if this is coming and being sourced from out the country, or it's going to take some time to get to you, you want to make sure that it's packaged properly, right? Even from your supplier. So because you don't want it to come to you spoiled. And then your supplier is going to say, well, I mean, sorry, you already paid. You're going to have to order another one. And this happens. I mean, that's the point of having this class. This happens so much to a lot of people. So you want to have suppliers that have these type of understandings to know, I need to package it properly so that it's not destroyed by the time it gets to you. All right. So that's another, aspect of choosing the right product. The third thing I'll say about choosing, before I get to that, yeah, what's your question?
So it's about shea butter. So I noticed when we were doing lives in the warehouse, the shea butter came in boxes, right?
Right.
I've I've seen other kind of shipping kind of I've seen like a blue shipping barrel. Have you ever considered, or would you ever consider shipping in one of those, or can you? Because they're quite huge, and well, I've never actually shipped anything in liquid form in that style, but what's your take on that?
Great question. So yes, absolutely. I have shipped in those barrels. And we have Goddess here on in the class, and she actually received her first shipment from Nigeria in barrels, right? I don't know if she can.
Yes, I did. They're in barrels, but they're in bricks inside the barrel. So any kind of melting that happened with, the few packs that did melt, the barrel caught that. But like to have it, there are some that have it like, let's just say the shea butter is just poured into the barrel and sealed up, right? Those ones would be better for somebody doing very large scale processing, because you have to think about dispensing them out of that barrel, right? And it's a solid thing, and it's a plastic barrel as well. So we're not going to be heating up that barrel to dispense it easier. So I remember telling Shalom I didn't want a big barrel of just shea butter that I had to scoop out, because that would just be a nightmare for me, because I'm not doing, I'm not putting them into giant vats at this point. But yeah, if I was putting them to giant vats, then that would make sense, like less plastic, less things to like cut open. But I really like the when it's a small business, it's really good to have manageable sections. Like even the boxes are what, 66 pounds. So inside of there's two 33-pound bricks. I can work with a 33-pound brick. I can lift it, I can cut it, I can melt it. And it's not so much of a hassle. But if I had a barrel to scoop out of, like, I would just, be crying.
No, thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right.
Right. So, with the barrels, again, for large scale manufacturers, there's times where we've shipped it without packaging inside. For hers, we packaged them in smaller size 2.2 pound bricks, which were sealed in the same material that we use to protect the hibiscus in the warehouse. So it's a polypropylene, clear material that helps keep it protected. And like she stated, even if they got busted, it was still contained in the barrel. So there was no huge loss, or any loss really, because you can just scoop it out. Now, those barrels, it depends on the quantity being shipped and who it's being shipped to. Now, I will say that each customer has preferences. So sometimes you see that I ship hibiscus flowers in sacks. Sometimes you'll see them in gigantic tote bags. And sometimes you'll see them in boxes. That's because it really depends on the customers going to. We try to understand kind of their operation, what they're going to be using it for. And then based on that, we determine, either we do or they tell us as well, how they would like it. Sometimes the packaging is determined by the shipping option. So going back to understanding like the shipping requirements and the logistics of it. So the packaging sometimes reflects that. And sometimes it's just based on the customer's request. So you want to think about your storage requirements or your storage conditions and kind of determine how you would best receive the product. And then an experienced supplier will help you figure that out, because they'll probably understand the different conditions that you need to have or do have. Okay. All right. Now, the third thing in choosing the right product, again, the first thing is research. The second thing is understanding your supply in terms of quantity and the cycles. The third thing is the demand. You know, what industries use the product that you're trying to source? How are you trying to sell? Who are you trying to sell it to? Okay. What industries use it? Is it being sold online? I mean, most things are today. So you can find most things selling online, but not everything. So going back to packaging and some of those things, like, is it being sold online in the way you're packaging it? If it's a retail product, obviously you can sell that online, but you really want to understand what industries are using this product, okay? And there are a plethora of industries. So I use hibiscus as an example. Hibiscus has a wide use and variety of industries use it. And part of my education to people about hibiscus is kind of giving them alternative industries that they might not have thought about that use the product. Many people know it just as a drink, but they're not aware that it's also used in other health and beauty industries, pet industries, I mean, coloring, apparel, so there could be a variety of uses for that specific product. Okay, so you want to do the research on the demand. That's what you're really trying to get to. You want to understand the demand. Yeah.
I've got a question for that, right? Trying to understand demand. Okay, so in my head, I'm thinking, how do you narrow that down to a region of the world? So we're all in different, dispersed places around the world now. So if I was to try to do some research, I suppose, to find where the demand is or the sectors, would you normally use like a market intelligence tool or something to find specific industries depending on what layer you are? Because we are talking about I remember you talking about the football team and whatnot. We've got retailers, then we've got, or it doesn't even matter, but you've got retailers, you've got like distributors, wholesalers, and these people supply different industries.
Right.
Is there a database or a source where we can try to find our demand for whatever customer we're trying to serve? If that makes sense.
Excellent question. So, as you said, it could be regional, right? That's one. So, the market for hibiscus and its use in America could be very different from the UK. Let me show you something. One moment. All right. So, I'll show you guys an example. Now, this, okay. Hopefully it's not too blurred. There we go. Come on. Sometimes it's blurry, sometimes it's not. Well, this is a coconut and hibiscus curling cream.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Just one example. Now, to answer your question, there are tools. I guess the most popular one where we could get started is Google, right? Google can be and is an amazing tool. In terms of breaking it down regionally, there's one platform which you'll get in the notes as well. I'll put it in the notes for this section of the lesson on. So it'll be under resources, okay? We'll put some resources and links to some resources where you can do some research. Now, some avenues that I use that kind of seem, I guess, non-traditional sometimes. I use platforms like Facebook. Okay, there's this tool in Facebook that kind of allows you to, especially when you're doing ads, but even if you're not doing ads, you can really research around groups and find like market segments to find niche of demand. You can also use Reddit. I don't know if you're familiar with Reddit as a platform. Are you familiar with Reddit? So Reddit is another platform. You can find kind of like segmented groups, okay, where you can see and gauge demand based on that. Facebook groups. You can look at different, sometimes there are regional marketplaces. Okay, so in the States, for example, you have a market, you have a, it's not really called a marketplace. What are these platforms called? Like a Craigslist, right? Platforms like that can be very non-traditional, but can also help in identifying, you know, if there's a niche market for stuff. Reddit can be very helpful. And believe it or not, even Instagram. If you go into the search bar of Instagram, okay, and let's say we're gonna try this out live right now. We're gonna go to Instagram. If you go to search bar, I'm gonna do hibiscus flower UK. Now, when you do open it up, there's different things. There'll be top, there'll be accounts, there'll be audio, there'll be tags, there'll be places. All right. Now, I can go to places and say United Kingdom. So interestingly enough, I just found one called Zobo UK. Now it's giving me actual like all these other varieties of hibiscus flowers because there's a lot of varieties. But nonetheless, I found a lot of pages with hibiscus flower or people interested in that. Now I can go from there to kind of, you know, manually browse through and see, is there, I mean, does there seem to be kind of like an audience for this? What pages are grabbing the most or seem to have a good followership? And then what can I do with them? Like I found one here, hibiscus flower infusions in the UK, in Croydon, and they have a drink. So, I mean, I'll give you some tips and things I've done before. Sometimes I'll look at something like this and I'll go to their page and find their followers. So let's see who their followers are, right? And I might follow their followers and see, these people are interested in this. This is a niche. So I could literally send a message to each one of these people. And I don't think it would be odd if I sent them a link to some hibiscus flowers because they're following a page that's all about hibiscus flowers.
What about Amazon? Because that's one of the ways that I find what's selling the most, you know, what content they have on their listing that makes them maybe sell the most. And that will tell me as well, like, what are the more popular products? and then also see what else I can add. Maybe there's something missing, something unique that these top selling products don't have. So I combine like what I see selling on Amazon with questions from Reddit and Quora. Quora's another place where people post questions, just simply post questions to get their problem solved. So Quora is a great way to figure out what problems people have that they're looking to get solved. And you might find that your product is solving those problems. Like for instance, I'll go into Quora and look at and Reddit and look at things about eczema, people's problems with eczema, how they're suffering, specifics about their experience with it, so that as I talk about the shea butter, I can address those issues.
Great point. That's one of the items on the list here in terms of the resources. You have a platform like Amazon. It could be a great resource, just like she pointed out. So yeah, you can find different pockets, and I'm sure there's a lot more other sites as well that we can go through. One of the sites, or some of the sites, I should say, that I do have for you. She's mentioned Quora. I'll put that on the list as well for you guys. You have Supplier Gateway. You have, these ones are more for, I guess, the import side of things. When you're looking for a supplier, Import Genius, Import Yeti, and again, these will be listed for you in the dashboard. But these are different ways that you can kind of do some research on the niche. I'm sure there are several tools, or maybe some tools out there that will give you more specific data. Now, here's one thing you can use, and I've used this many times. You can go to a platform called Ubersuggest. Okay? Just like you would spell Uber, it's called Ubersuggest. And you can type it in, okay? And type it in and then look at what keywords are popping up and if there's any traffic for those. Another thing you can do, I mentioned Google, but even more specifically, you could do Google Trends, okay? You can go to Google Trends, and on Google Trends, you can type in shea butter and look at what are the trends for shea butter happening right now. Google Trends. That's another avenue. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I noted all of them down. The one I kind of have looked at briefly without paying for a subscription is Import Genius. So I was, it's good that you noted all these other tools in terms of, and social media sites to look at. So that has, been informative. Thank you. Also though, we look at demand, right? And tools to kind of, the stuff that you mentioned to look for problems to look for problems and whatnot. Is there something that you can also, sorry, I know we're running out of time, but is there also an element of what shipping company you might use to import it, get your product? As in, so for example, say I need a large quantity. Would you then, say for in the future, I might need a huge barrel. Would you deliver it via Nigeria or America, or would I order it on your website? What's the shipping kind of process? What would make it easier for you to get product to me from where your product is?
That's a fantastic question. So this will go back to a little bit of the supply and the research. So depending on the quantity, and if you do have a good supplier, right, depending on the quantity, depending on how I'm going to package it, will kind of determine how I'm going to send it to you logistically. Okay, so some logistics companies are notorious for not handling certain types of packages well. Some are better at handling other types of packages well. So you might have a logistics, I'm trying not to call any names, but you might have some logistics companies that are good with small size packages, but not necessarily with larger size packages, right? So depending on the quantity and price, that's going to really affect how it is that I get it to you. So timeline in terms of how quickly you need it, how quickly does it need to get there? That's a factor in selecting a shipping company, right? The condition of the packaging, how I'm packaging and how I'm sending it to you. If I were to send you, a 15-pound or 5 pounds of shea butter or hibiscus, if it's going to cost more, first of all, for a quantity like that, I'd probably send it through one of our other distribution centers rather than sending it from Nigeria, because it might cost a lot more and may not be handled as well in that small size coming from Nigeria versus coming from the States. It might be easier to just get it out. UPS will pick it up and bada bing, bada boom, right? So these are factors. For larger size quantities, depending on how much quantity is needed, right, it might need to come straight from our main warehouse, right? Let's say on the continent, from the source, because there might not be enough to, and maybe not even that there might not be enough, but there are also plans and projections for a supplier like myself in making sure that there's enough for distribution in certain regions. So even if we have enough to send you a container of a product from the United States, my option may be to opt more for sending it from West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, wherever, right? Because of the quantity and because of the packaging style. That might need to come in a container or on a pallet rather than a box.
Yeah. How do you like forecast this, Shalom? It seems like, you've got a lot of, you've got a lot of customers, and obviously they want different quantities, different. How do you plan it all? How do you forecast it? Because
That's a great
how do
question.
you forecast? Yeah.
Experience.
Okay.
Yeah, experience. You want to keep growing, obviously. So is it a good sign if you run out of product? Yeah, it could be a good sign, but at the same time, you don't want to be out of product to not be able to sustain the customer. The other part to this is, as you grow, you also want to understand who your customer base is. Now, some people want to chase a new customer every day, right? I can't say that that's the case for me at this point. It's more of, if you have, at least in this scale, right? If you have 2 or 3 good customers and they're ordering significant amounts of volume, you really want to cater to them. You really want to understand how much volume they're going through. This is also part of what I try to understand when taking a customer on. So going back to the questions, all right, here's how much quantity I have available in this cycle. So will I be able to sustain you as a customer? That's something that you need to be transparent with your customer, and vice versa. That customer or the buyer should be with the supplier to say, I'm going to need, 1 pound every week, or I'm going to need 10 pounds every week. That way we can kind of scale and grow together.
Okay.
Right? So you don't necessarily want to bite off more than you can chew. You want to scale smartly. You want to scale with ease and not just take on everyone that says they want to be a customer left and right, because you're not going to be able to service them properly. So you just want to make sure that you can service your customers properly. And so maintaining 2 or 3 solid customers, understanding their buying cycles, and then servicing them well enough to a point where they'll tell other people about you,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's kind of how I do this at this point. And then going into New Year's, I take track and keep track of inquiries. So there's inquiries that come in almost weekly. Hey, I want X amount of hibiscus. I want X amount of shea butter. So I look at the amount of inquiries and the quantity, and then going into next year, I might import just a little bit more of hibiscus because I know that the demand has been growing and the demand is there based on X amount of customers.
Okay.
Then if those customers are serious, then there's a certain way, and I'll talk about it more in our marketing and sales strategies and how to ensure that, okay, this customer is serious. Here are the things that they will do to show you that they are serious, to give you a commitment so that you're not just importing blindly.
Okay. Yeah.
Not flying blindly. You will have a sense of these are the type of volumes that you can sustain.
Is there some sort of like verbal or paper-based kind of agreement that is there some sort of contract that you agree with your customer? Is there a word for it? Maybe, because I don't really have the kind of sales language. So
Absolutely. So I mean, you do depending on, okay, let me generalize, but it can vary, right?
Okay.
Depending on the customer, well, there's what you call a letter of interest or letter of intent.
Yeah.
All right. So that's one way a customer can show you that they're serious. They'll send you an LOI, a letter of interest. So in our process, one of the things we do is first, there's a request for quote.
Yeah.
They'll send you a request to quote a certain amount of product delivered to a certain place. So that's something you can send. Sometimes it doesn't matter the quantity. There's platforms and places. LinkedIn is another good resource. Where LinkedIn groups, and then you can post a request for quote, an RFQ, and say, hey, I am looking for 100 pounds of shea butter. And then a supplier will respond to you. Or some suppliers will already have their process for an RFQ and say, fill out this form in order to get us to be your supplier. So based on that RFQ, I can tell the quantity, the delivery location, all those things help me determine if I can even be a qualified supplier for you. Then from that, on the customer end, if you really want to gauge if they're serious or not, they might send you, or you can request a letter of interest or a letter of intent to say, I am really interested in purchasing from you, XYZ supplier, and here's a letter. It's signed, it's dated, it's very formal, right? And it'll clearly outline the quantity they want to purchase, and sometimes even the price they're looking for. So it will tell you a lot about the type of customer and their level of interest in getting product from you. So, and then the other part that is quite common, I guess, is a security deposit. When someone puts up a deposit of money to say, Shalom, here's 10%. I want to show you that I'm serious. I really want your hibiscus flowers. I really want your shea butter. That, I mean, that, I guess that's as good as it gets, right? It's putting their money where their mouth is and showing you how serious they are. Yeah. So yeah, those are three good ways that you can find that. So we've got the top of the hour. However, it's been really good. I mean, we've talked about kind of 3 ways of choosing the right product, you know, and we've talked about some sourcing resources, and you know, we've touched on research aspect, we've touched on the supply aspect in terms of quantity, et cetera, and then or logistics, and then we've also talked about the demand side to really understand who's using your product, right? And these all should play a role in how you select your product. I did get a couple questions that I want to answer before we leave. So, well, actually, we answered some of them. What are some key things to look for when selecting your product? So, again, for me, I look at the state, meaning, is it dry? Is it wet? Is it liquid? Is it gas? What's the form it takes? So I'll give you an example of 2 products that I intentionally do not supply. One is yams. I do not supply yams. And 2 is cashews. I do not, and for both of these, I'm saying yet, because of certain experiences. So these are very moisture sensitive, you know, products. And so when not done properly, they can cause a major problem. I have seen full containers delivered and they have to be destroyed. And so it can become very, very costly if you don't understand some of these things like the packaging conditions and things of that nature. So, you know, those are certain things to look for. You want to definitely look at the condition. Is it going to be dry? Is it going to be wet? Is it going to be oily? You know, all those things can play a factor because you're going to have to store it. You're going to have to package it. You know, you want to take all those things into consideration. Another great question I received: should I source products that are popular or try to be unique and source something not as common? Look, this comes down to research and demand. Frankly, it comes down to research and demand, because if you get a product that's not as popular, okay, the question is, do you have a market to sell it? Because at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. You want to sell. So if it's a product that's, you know, you can't, you can't sell, there's no demand for it, then you're going to be stuck with inventory. However, if you get something that is popular, you know, there's maybe more buyers, more competition, then it'll go down to, you know, unique selling proposition, which is one of the things I cover in the book, right? And, you know, talking about what's your unique selling proposition? How do you make your hibiscus different than mine? Okay, we can be selling the same product. A lot of people are selling hibiscus, a lot of people are selling shea butter, but what makes yours different than mine? Look at this one, coconut and hibiscus. So they're selling coconut oil and hibiscus. All right, that's different, that's unique. And it does have some shea butter. So they're not even marketing the shea butter aspect, but it does have some shea butter. It smells good too. So sometimes it's good to just source products that you know already have demand, because you're not going to be stuck. It just comes down to your marketing and sales abilities at that point. But also, another advantage to sourcing something that's not as common is if you can catch trends. This is where Google Trends will come in, right? Or your ability to do some research to say, what is it that people are really talking about right now? I'll give you an example. Tiger nuts. Okay, research tiger nuts. Now, if you go outside right now or tomorrow and ask someone if they've ever heard of tiger nuts, maybe 50-50. However, if you look at the trends, it is a growing superfood. And you will likely sell depending on what channels you use to sell. Because there are people who are niche in that space who will look for that product specifically. Okay. And then I'll give you one more resource that I'm going to put here on the dashboard in your course library. Is a platform called Helium. And Helium is one of those data platforms that you can really do some research and see what's selling and whatnot. So hopefully that's been really insightful. Go ahead.
Is it called Helium 10?
Yes, Helium 10.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I've actually just downloaded that a few days ago. So I noticed, so I wasn't too sure what I was looking for exactly, but I found that to be useful to browse Amazon, actually. What
Yep.
do you use it for? Is it just for Amazon or?
Amazon.
Okay. Do you
Look at
sell?
those trends. Go ahead.
Do you sell? This question is also probably for the other people in the room. I'm not too sure what stages you are. I know where some of you guys are as well. Do you use Amazon to sell across the globe? Like, obviously you've got retailers, right? And you take your product, you know, your retail product, and I'm assuming you might send it to an Amazon fulfillment center. But do you use the Amazon platform as well to sell in different regions of the world where Amazon is available to its customer? Or is it just one?
That's a great question as well. So, you know, one of the things that when you sign up for Amazon, they ask you what regions and stuff that you want. At the moment, we're specifically in Amazon within North America, right? So you have Canada, you have Mexico. Not so much in the UK. One of the strategic things that we do is when you have distribution partners, then they can manage what's on that side, right? That way you're not trying to manage the whole thing. You can have people that help manage regionally. Amazon's also entering Nigeria, right? So, you know, they have a very broad reach. It is a very useful platform. Another platform that I don't know if it's as popular in the UK, but Walmart. Walmart.com is another amazing channel right now for sales of product, at least within the US. And let me say this, when we're talking about this class and the opportunities, just like I say, you can, whether you're on the continent or in the diaspora, you can do it from anywhere. You can sell from the UK within the US, right? You just need to have the distribution, right, to get out, to fulfill it. And you mentioned fulfillment.
Sorry.
You
What was
mentioned
that?
fulfillment, which is one, you know, aspect, but that's another, and we'll get to it. Those are some of the services that we provide with our warehouse, where we provide fulfillment services. Amazon is down the street from us at that, but you know, they have a whole system. Walmart also has its own fulfillment, similar to Amazon. And you have other, what you call third-party logistics. There are a lot of companies that do fulfillment, just like Amazon does. But what was your question?
No, I wanted, yeah, I wanted to, you answered the question. I wanted to know like how you, you said, you know, Amazon is another platform we could potentially sell on. So I wanted to know how you sold on it. And you've answered the question, so it's fine. Thank you.
Amazon, we use Walmart. Surprisingly, you know, well, let me not say surprisingly, but I think nowadays people are realizing that it's not just retail products they sell online, right? I sell in bulk online as well, you know? So we're getting to a point where as technology continues, people will be ordering containers online. As long as you are a trusted and reliable supplier, and that can be verified, you can sell in these, scales and volumes. Another that I will plug in. Can you hear me?
Yes.
One more platform that I'll add to your list, and we will highlight and probably have them come in as guests in one of our classes somewhere down the line. We're going to do some, but it's a platform called Tridge. And Tridge is specifically for agricultural products. It's another one to source suppliers that are vetted to a very high. And so that's another platform you can find us on. You can find us on Tridge because we've for years and verified to know, okay, these people are real suppliers. They can supply in this quality and this quantity. And you kind of see all the questions that typically have at that level, at that scale, is all on your profile. And it's a very specific type of buyer that would come to their platform anyways. And so it's getting rid of some of those problems for them.
Okay. How do you know that you can, I know you've used it for many years, but when you first went on to Tridge, how do they, I mean, what makes you feel that they are trustworthy? Do they, like, what did they ask you for? How would you know that that's a trustworthy supplier? I know it's on a platform, but what did they do? Yeah.
So what they do, their entire job really is to vet qualified buyers and qualified suppliers. So as a supplier, there's people that ask for RFQs all the time, right? But they're not qualified buyers for me, meaning I have a minimum quantity order. I want to sell, I'm not trying to sell 1 pound. I'm trying to sell 20, 30, 50, 100,000 pounds at a time. So for the type of buyer I'm looking for, there's a process of vetting that they do with the buyer. And then there's a process that they do with me, the seller or the supplier, such as proof of past exports. They do, they references, past customers. And then when you get into things like import, a lot of these things become almost public knowledge, right? You have Import Genius, where you can go in and say, Shalom, you're right. Shalom says he's an export. I'm going to type in his company name. Are they legit? Those type of platforms, right? They'll do the type of work that you perhaps don't want to go through and do and vet both ways, buyer and supplier.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Any more questions from anyone else in the room? I see Ty, you're still here. Courtney, anyone have any questions before we leave?
No, I mean, she's been coming with a lot of great questions. I've just been listening.
Yeah, you have. Look, you've had some great questions, Lola.
Yes, she has. She's definitely, done the work for us.
Love it.
I've been when I'm not when I've got some free time, I'm on my phone, literally trying to shape how I'm going to build this service. So yeah, there's lots of questions that I've had. So I've just been waiting as we go through the course to throw them into the classes. So thank you for just getting them answered. I really, really appreciate that.
Excellent. And I hope you're getting the information you need. I want to make sure that you guys have as much resources as you need to really become successful. I'm giving you the exact things I need. I use, and that's all really this is telling you and guiding you through either some of what I've done, things I've experienced, or the tools and resources that I use to do this and be successful at it. So we'll have all this on the resources in the platform, and you'll notice that some are not available yet. So it'll be more ready for the next class, but this is ready. The steps to choosing the right product. You will see notes in there, and we'll have a lot more graphics. So as we go through this course, and I know you guys have been bearing with me, there'll be a lot more visuals, okay? Some of the technical difficulties will get sorted out, and there will be a lot more visuals, a lot more video to make sure that everything we've discussed, you will be able to see, so that we have someone like Ty who's on the phone and can't really see it right now, but you will have those available to you, so you won't miss anything, okay? And that goes for the people who register for the class and aren't here either, but all of these will be available, all right? All right, guys, it's been
Thank you.
my pleasure, and thank you guys for showing up, and and insightful. I hope you've gotten some good information today, specifically on just product sourcing and selection, and you know, finding a supplier can be tough. Okay, so do as much research as you can. All right, and use some of these platforms as ways to vet out people, and really use logic, use common sense. Sometimes just look at who they've supplied to in the past. You have platforms like Import Genius, where I believe it's Import Genius, where it'll show you what other companies are connected to them in terms of who they've supplied to in the past, what year they supplied, what product they supplied. You know, all these things are very much public knowledge. Now, in smaller quantity is a lot tougher. So that's why you have like customer reviews when you order something on Amazon, right? You have customer reviews that will tell you, okay, this person is legit. So look at things like that. And when selecting a product, really do some research. You know, it might be safe to start with something that's already popular and then do more research to find niche products. And I just gave you guys a niche product, Tiger Nuts. Believe me, Tiger Nuts is a niche product. We will start supplying it in bulk. And it's another product that's a superfood that comes from Africa. And so, you know, that's another thing. I know that we've gotten requests from some companies who are well reputable that are also showing interest in Tiger Nuts. But I'm telling you that, you know, the superfood space, especially African superfoods, that alone is already pointing you in the direction of the niche market that you should go. Hibiscus and shea butter are some of the popular items within this niche that you can already see sales, and you can get into it and get kicking and running. But then there are products that we'll start discussing and I'll start bringing up that, you know, are kind of growing in interest. And as you start to grow your business in whatever area, whether service or product, you'll have the knowledge, and you can start becoming the leader in your space, in your world, to show people that you know what you're talking about and you have the supply for it. Okay? All right, guys. Until next week, next Wednesday, it's going to be Wakanda Wednesday, every Wednesday this month. Okay? By the next class, you know, the second Wakanda movie would have come out. So don't be surprised if I come in a full costume. I'm impartial today. I didn't want to go full Wakanda mode on you guys, but it's Wakanda Wednesday, and I'll see you guys in the next class. So take it easy. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me, send me a message, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. Okay? Have a great day, guys.
You guys do the same.
Take care.